Hi guys, I've had some ask about my first person view airplane that I'm building out. I just finished it, waiting for weather to clear. So I thought I would show a video of kind of what it's all about. Essentially what first person view is, for those that haven't come across it before, is you fly this plane. This is a Skywalker model that I chose, has a 6-foot wingspan. So I chose that because it can handle a heavy payload. Some guys are flying these things for an hour in the sky at a time, so that sounded appealing. Anyway, what it's got is it's got one camera up here on the front that would actually hook up to these goggles here, and you're able to wear these goggles while you're flying the airplane, and so you're essentially acting like you're sitting in the cockpit. You're using this I have the Spectrum DX6i to control the airplane with the joysticks and whatnot, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then what happens is you have the video that's transmitting back to Earth. I have this receiver here that then again hooks up to these goggles, and as well as you can hook it up to a laptop for recording, etc. Now I'm going to do something, a lot of guys are doing this. They're putting on GoPro cameras as well as this camera. The reason I do that is they want high definition. I don't have a GoPro, I have a flip camera, and I actually mounted this bolt through the canopy here, and I think that's going to work out really well because the flip is actually a taller camera. It's about the same weight, but it's a taller camera, and I think that's going to allow me to see over the top. In fact, I'm sure of it, will allow me to see over the top of this camera, and so I should be able to get great high definition video. So it should be interesting to see how that works. It is standing up a little higher, so I have to look at wind drag and see if that's going to be a problem, but I think I'm going to be okay. Alright, so on board, I have the cameras. I'll have two on the front. I have the typical components, servos, etc., speed control, and I'll show you where that is in a minute for controlling the airplane. But I also have a what they call a Nova OSD, which is essentially a poor man's on-screen display that will allow me to see kind of my altitude, speed. Also has a really cool return to home feature that where automatically will return to home and kind of hover above. So I'm eager to see what that looks like. So can't wait for the weather to clear up and try that. Let me show you a couple things, that kind of lessons learned. First off, I was surprised, but the instructions say to use fabric tape for the flaps. It has these various flaps, ailerons and elevator and rudder. And they actually suggested to use white and then put decals all over the body, but I actually like this checkered so much that I went with that. I've actually worked it into kind of the cosmetic design of the airplane, so that actually worked out really well. And then the other thing was the landing gear actually do not come with the plane. That was something that I added on, and that's going to be interesting. A lot of guys land on their belly, and I think they're able to land in any kind of terrain that way. So I'm starting to regret maybe putting on the landing gear. But I was a little concerned landing on the belly that the wings are that much closer to the ground, and if I came in at an awkward angle, I could do some damage. So I thought this was going to be more forgiving for a newbie, but we'll see how that works out. Okay, so let me again go over the components. First, let me take this wing off. And normally that wing would hook up to the Nova OSD with this servo cable. Something to note with the Nova OSD, and that is it only allows for one aileron servo connection. And so if you're used to wanting to have two, then that's going to be a problem. Okay, so again, we have the video camera. It is wired to this video transmitter, and this is again going to transmit back to my on-ground receiver. This is a 5.8 gigahertz, so it won't conflict with my my radio transmitter. And essentially, it's 500 milliwatt. It's got a buffer fan on it to keep it cool. I mounted it on its side because it seemed like to me that having the circuit board above would just have the sun beating on it, make it even hotter. So I mounted it on the side, and I think it's a little bit more protected that way as well. What's interesting is it has a microphone on it, and I thought it'd be cool to be able to hear the engine noise, so I could hear kind of the RPMs. So I again feel like I'm flying the plane. I'm concerned though that the buffer fan is going to actually cause more noise since it's right next to the microphone, and it might be a problem. So we'll see. I also mounted it right behind the propeller so that it also will be kept cool that way. I've done some tests for about an hour and it didn't get really hot at all, so I think I'm going to be okay with that solution. You heard me talk about the Nova OSD. That's this card here. I put it in this slot here. I did some testing and that card really doesn't get very warm at all. This compartment up top, once the wing goes on, it is not going to get any ventilation at all that I can tell. And so I wanted something up there that I needed to access easily, which is my Nova and my OSD. And I think that we're going to be okay there. I also wanted, again, quick access so I could read it and not have to work in the side compartment. One concern with my radio is on the Nova OSD you can go into autopilot mode, and it has three different settings. One is manual flight, the second is just the autopilot, and the third is return to home. I unfortunately do not have any three-way position toggle switches on this, so I'm only going to be able to switch two of those settings. It looks like I have manual and return to home, and if that's the case I'm okay, but otherwise I'm going to have a problem not having the right radio, but we'll see what happens. Alright, so on the side I've done like what a lot of guys do, and I've cut a door on the side. One of the things that I did a little different is I have it beveled like most guys do, but on the bottom of it I actually beveled it the other direction, so it's opposite than the other sides, so that I can actually put it in here, and I have magnets so that when I let go it just slams shut. And because it's beveled the other way on the bottom, I don't have to have it hinged, so I can actually take it out of the way. On the other side, I'm not going to really show you the details, but on the other side I've also have written my contact information, so if I lose a plane, hopefully somebody will be generous enough to return it. So let me show you inside a little bit. Okay, so some of the major components I have: my radio receiver here. It's a Spectrum, so there are two parts to it, the main and then a alternative one is on the bottom. And those again are just Spectrum typical radio receivers. I have a separate power supply for my servos and my OSD. And then up on top I've actually mounted my ESC. I was a little concerned about temperature. And so I have mounted, you have these airflows through the front. I've mounted them in such a way that I'm hoping that the air just goes right through here. There's an exit hole in the back, and so I'm hoping that will keep my speed control cool. The canopy comes off on this model, and again, so I have a bolt through the canopy that actually I'm going to use for my flip camera mount. But this comes off, and I made the wire long enough that I can set the canopy down and get it out of the way. I have two large batteries that I'm going to use to power this thing. Boy, I should be able to go for quite a while with those big boys. I've made a mark inside as to the line where they really can't pass, so that I can maintain my center of gravity. And I've marked my wings over here so I know where my center of gravity is. Okay, I have essentially two hookups for my separate batteries. One is this blue guy in here, that big blue guy. And that's actually a current sensor that's going to go to my OSD to tell me how much current that I've been using and the current voltage readout. So that's going to be one dedicated battery right to the motor. That's going to use the most juice, so I wanted that separate. And then I essentially have this splitter that I made. One goes to the Nova OSD and my video stuff, and the other one goes to my servos. Okay, and I think I may even be able to make one of these smaller once I learn the voltage consumption. Okay, the OSD has, as I mentioned already, it's got a voltage / current sensor, so I can measure voltage. It also, because it's being powered off of this other one, will measure the voltage of the separate batteries. So I'll be able to see the voltage readings of both batteries. And then it also has a GPS unit on the front that will allow me to find my way back home. And then it's got a cool feature when you're in autopilot, and that's this infrared sensor that will look at the horizon. You essentially calibrate it from ground in the sky, and it'll be able to tell where the horizon is and keep it fairly stable as it's in autopilot. One of the first mistakes, I've made several, but one of the mistakes I made was mounting the sensor up here on the top of the flap here, or the this horizontal. But the problem with that is when you look out at the horizon, you're going to have a restricted view because this is actually in the way. So you're really only going to be able to see the sky. So I had to remove it from the top, and what looks like what most people are doing now is mounting it down here so that it has full view of the horizon. It was kind of too late for me to do that because, like a rookie, I've mounted my wire inside the plane. So what I've done is I've actually mounted this underneath the wing, and I think I'm going to be fine with that. It still has full view. So we'll see how that works out. I think I'm going to be okay. And I think that is it for now. I will post more videos that show me actually my first flights, etc., and see how that goes. See ya.